It's Monday morning in Manhattan. Skyline still stretching, coffee barely kicking in, and Marcus Reed is strutting into Vantage Corporation like he owns the damn place. Charcoal suit, crisp enough to slice air. Resume thick with all the right buzzwords, and confidence wrapped around him like cologne. But the second he hits the lobby, something snaps. Not audibly, not visibly, but vibe-wise, the air shifts. The receptionist's fake friendly smile short circuits. HR glances up from behind the desk like he just asked to borrow bail money. And when CEO Darren Claiborne passes through, tall, pale, and born on third base, he gives Marcus a look. Not a curious look, not a surprised one. Nah, this look says, "What the hell are you doing here?" Marcus clocks it, all of it, but he doesn't flinch. That's not his brand. He's been here before, too many times in too many rooms, where his skin gets noticed before his experience. He offers a nod to the receptionist who doesn't even bother pretending anymore. She buzzes someone with the urgency of a dental cleaning. "Someone will be right with you," she says, voice dipped and awkward. Spoiler, nobody's right with him. 10 minutes pass, then 20. Then a suit and cheap shoes finally emerges, looking like he's running on Adderall and bad decisions. "Mr. Reed?" he asks. Marcus stands. "That's me." The guy doesn't even shake his hand. "Follow me." They weave through glass corridors, past meeting rooms full of people who all look like they could have been extras on Succession. Marcus doesn't miss the glances. Quick, quiet, pointed. They pass a glass door labeled Data Security. Inside, two interns straight up stop scrolling TikTok just to stare at him, like he walked in wearing a ski mask. Finally, they reach a small conference room. No windows. One chair at the end of the table, clearly staged. One laptop, one water bottle, one vibe. And then the guy just leaves. Marcus sits, unsure if he's being interviewed or interrogated. He's got questions, but instead of answers, in walks Darren Claiborne himself. No assistant, no warning, no smile. Just power in a tailored navy suit. "Marcus," he says, sitting across from him, legs crossed like this is poker night. "Tell me, Zeke, who referred you here?" Marcus blinks. Not, "Why are you interested in the role?" Not, "Walk me through your resume." This isn't even page one interview etiquette. This is something else. "I applied through your public jobby board," Marcus replies carefully. Claiborne narrows his eyes. "And you thought this role was a good fit?" "I know it is," Marcus says evenly. Long pause. Then Claiborne leans forward and drops the act. "I don't think you understand, Mr. Reed. You're not supposed to be here." And just like that, everything makes sense. And nothing makes sense at all. But Marcus, he doesn't blink, he doesn't get up. He just smiles, the kind of smile that flips tables in silence. "Funny," he says, voice low, "because I was invited." Claiborne's expression flickers, just for a millisecond. And that's all Marcus needs. The shift is subtle but seismic. Somebody messed up. Somebody in this building wanted Marcus here, and someone else wants him gone. But Marcus, oh, he's just getting started. Because this isn't just about a job. It's about why a resume like his gets flagged. About the back-channel politics no one talks about in boardrooms. About secrets companies bury like nuclear waste and call it restructuring. And today, those secrets picked the wrong guy to walk through the front door. Marcus didn't expect warmth. He's not new here. But damn, this room is giving surgical theater energy. Cold, silent, sterile as hell. Glass walls on all sides like a human terrarium. Fluorescent lights overhead that make skin tones look extra washed. He sits in the lone chair across from some stiff in a tech hoodie who introduces himself as Eli from Strategy with the charisma of a damp sponge. Marcus flashes his most professional smile. Polished, disarming. The one that says, "I've been here before and I belong." Because he does. Ivy League degree. 8 years of experience leading high-stakes projects. References longer than a CVS receipt. But none of that gets brought up. Not once. Eli fumbles through a Google Doc like it's his first time seeing words. No eye contact. No questions about leadership or innovation or any of the usual corporate theater. Just, "So, what would you say is your biggest weakness?" Marcus blinks once. "Really?" "I work hard," he says. letting the sarcasm flirt with the edge of his voice. Too hard, probably. Eli nods like he's checking off a box on autopilot. Right, passion, cool. 3 minutes in, the door opens mid-sentence. Boom. Darren Claiborne. Again. No knock. Just presence. Like a rich uncle you never see until a will gets read. Eli, he says, like he just caught the guy stealing office pens. You mind giving us the room? Eli practically evaporates. Darren doesn't sit. He just stares, arms folded. Expensive watch catching the light. Marcus stays cool, but his jaw's tight. This ain't curiosity anymore. It's a performance. So, Darren starts, voice all fake calm. Tell me, Marcus, what attracted you to Vantage? Track record of innovation, Marcus says. Global reach, room to build. A beat. Darren nods slowly, then says, we're looking for someone who fits our culture. Marcus blinks again. What does that mean exactly? It means... Darren drags the pause like he's sipping it. We've built something here. A rhythm, a personality, it's delicate. Still no mention of Marcus's resume, his credentials. Nothing. Just vibes. Wrong ones. Marcus straightens. I've led multi-million-dollar projects on 3 continents. Graduated top of my class at Dartmouth. If culture means results, I fit. Darren chuckles. It's not that simple. No, Marcus says. I think it is. Another long stare. Another cold smile. The kind that never reaches the eyes, just dances across the lips like a bad secret. You'll hear from us, Darren says, already halfway out the door. Marcus stands, slowly. Doesn't rush. Doesn't give them the satisfaction. He walks toward the lobby like it's a runway. But just as he reaches the elevator, he hears it. Darren's voice, low, muttering to Eli, who's conveniently lurking nearby. These DEI quotas are getting out of hand. Marcus freezes. Just for a second. Not long enough for anyone to notice, but long enough for the fire to catch in his chest. And in that moment, something shifts. The interview wasn't about a job. It was about showing Marcus the door, without having to hold it open. About playing a game with rules they never wrote down but always enforce. It was never about fitting in. It was about reminding him he didn't. But Darren? He made one mistake. He said it out loud. And Marcus? He doesn't forget things like that. He presses the elevator button, hands in his pockets, heart calm and slow. Because they just handed him everything he needs. Not a rejection. A receipt. And receipts in Marcus's hands? Oh, baby, that's where the story really begins. The doors slide shut with a hiss, like the building itself is trying to shoo Marcus out. He exhales, slow, steady. Not the breath of someone who lost, but someone who knew exactly how this was gonna go. This wasn't a curveball. It was confirmation. Marcus pulls his phone from the inside pocket of his blazer. Not hurried, not panicked. Just smooth, like muscle memory. He opens a hidden thread and signal, taps out a single line. He's exactly as expected. Ready on my signal. He hits send. Across Manhattan, 3 phones buzz like a secret handshake. One lights up in a brownstone in Brooklyn, where a woman with buzzed hair and war criminal-level focus smiles without looking up from her laptop. Another chimes inside a car rolling down Fifth Ave. Passenger seat. A man in a tailored tan suit flicks ash off his cigarette and whispers, "Finally." The last one vibrates in the pocket of a barista pouring espresso in Tribeca, who doesn't even pause. Just taps reply. Let's burn it down. And uptown, 38 floors above street level, behind thick glass and triple-padded egos, a boardroom door swings open. Inside sits Nadine Laurent, corporate acquisitions attorney, shark in human skin, and very into revenge when it's legally binding. She sees the message, and she grins. Because while Darren Claiborne was busy measuring Marcus with bias and microaggressions wrapped in buzzwords, Marcus was measuring him, the company, the culture, the cracks, and baby Vantage Corp's armor leaking. Nadine turns to the massive screen behind her, displaying spreadsheets no intern should ever see. Pull the trigger on phase 2, she says to the room of stunned analysts. Notify compliance, quietly. Someone swallows, but they rejected him. Exactly, Nadine says, standing. And they did it exactly how we needed them to. Because Marcus wasn't here for a damn job. He was the signal. The elevator dings and opens onto the lobby. And Marcus walks out like he just left brunch, not a corporate setup. Calm, collected, dangerous. He steps out into the street, phone still in hand. The city moves around him. Horns, heels, 100 conversations smashing into each other. But in Marcus's world, everything's quiet, clean. Because chess is silent, and he's been playing this game since day one. Across town, the team gets to work. Emails begin sliding into inboxes. Quiet at first. Internal reviews flagged. A compliance audit logged. One line buried in a file. Potential Title VII liability flagged in candidate evaluation process. By the time Darren gets his second espresso of the morning, HR is already texting legal. Hey, small question. Did someone say something about DEI? And before lunch, the glass walls that made Marcus feel like a specimen start turning transparent in the other direction. Because if Darren had actually read the damn resume, he'd know Marcus Reed doesn't just apply to jobs. He builds exits, and this time he brought blueprints for Vantage's downfall. Darren Claiborne leans back in his $12,000 Italian leather chair, like he invented gravity. The Manhattan skyline stretches out behind him, steel and glass for miles. And in his hand is a crystal tumbler half full of scotch he can't pronounce, but paid enough for. The office is still. Carpet too thick to hear footsteps. Air so purified it feels artificial. That's how Darren likes it. Controlled, predictable, powerful. So when his phone rings, private line, direct from his CFO, he doesn't flinch. Just presses the button on speaker. Talk to me, Alan. There's a pause, not hesitation, tension. Hey, something has come up. Darren chuckles, taking a slow sip. Alan, we're days away from closing a merger that'll bump our valuation by 3.7B. If this is about printer ink or Karen and HR forgetting a zero, save it. Another pause, longer this time. It's the audit team, Alan says carefully. They're flagging irregularities. Darren rolls his eyes. Define irregularities. There was an applicant, Alan says, voice tighter now. Black male, mid-30s, Ivy League background. Interviewed this morning for the PM role. Darren stiffens, just a flicker, a heartbeat. What about him? He wasn't just an applicant, Alan says. He was a plant, sent in undercover by an external firm. The firm happens to be representing a group of private investors looking at, let's call it a hostile option. Silence. Darren lowers the glass, slow. Wait, you're saying this guy, this diversity hire, was a setup? He's not a diversity hire, Darren. He's a fucking strategy consultant. And we just walked straight into a trap. Outside, the skyline keeps shining. Inside, the temperature drops. Darren stands, walking toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, eyes scanning the city like it can give him a different answer. You're telling me this kid tanked our merger? No, Alan says, flat. You tanked the merger, he just took notes. And there it is, the thing Darren never saw coming. The twist that eats men like him from the inside out. He's not the one in control. He never was. That smile Marcus gave, that wasn't politeness. It was the fuse. Okay, Darren says, voice low now, like a storm beneath the floorboards. What's the play? Alan hesitates. They're already filing. HR's exposure is public record. They have quotes. Audio, Darren. And Darren remembers it now, just faintly. The moment he muttered about DEI quotas near the elevator. Oh fuck. There's more, Alan adds, piling the panic. One of the investors behind the merger is pulling out. Says your behavior suggests cultural volatility. Their words. The scotch suddenly tastes like acid in Darren's throat. Outside the office door, his assistant is whispering to someone on the phone, glancing in nervously. Everything is too quiet, too still. Like a building, seconds before the wrecking ball hits. Darren slams the tumbler down, cracking the bottom. Find me everything on this guy. Marcus Reed. I want full background. I want dirt. But Alan is already one step ahead. We tried. His trail's clean, almost too clean. Darren doesn't respond. Just stares out at the empire he thought he owned. And for the first time in a long time, he feels small. While Darren Claiborne paced his corner office like a king, realizing the throne was borrowed. The real war was being fought across town. In a quiet, neon-lit conference room, stacked wall to wall with monitors, coffee cups, and the ghosts of deleted files. 4 attorneys, 2 data analysts, 1 machine learning model trained to sniff out dirty money like a bloodhound. At the center of it all sat Nadine Laurent, sleeves rolled up, eyes locked on a glowing spreadsheet that looked more like a spider web than a balance sheet. She tapped her finger against a cell in row 437. Here, she said. A junior analyst leaned over, squinting. Looks like a defunct consulting firm. On paper, Nadine said. But it shares a P.O. box with two other entities. One in the Cayman Islands, one in Nevada. Both shell companies tied to quarterly payments from a Vantage-backed venture fund. Silence. She clicked again. 3 folders popped open. Legal filings, deferred tax agreements, NDAs so aggressive they practically screamed. Jesus, muttered one of the lawyers. Nadine smiled, but it wasn't friendly. You're looking at 10 years of corporate laundering, wrapped in just enough legality to keep SEC eyes off it. Another tap. A logo appeared on screen, simple, bold MRA Holdings. Initials no one in that room forgot, because they stood for Mercer, Rowe, and Associates. A shadow venture group notorious for swallowing mid-tier tech firms whole, bleeding them dry, then selling off their IP like scrap metal. But the kicker? They owned 38% of Vantage Corp. Claiborne had to know, one attorney said. No, Nadine replied. That's the best part. He didn't. MRA doesn't do meetings, they do money. She pulled up a transcript from an internal Slack channel dated 2 months ago. Darren's name right there. Arrogant as hell. Don't worry about MRA, they're just passive capital. We make the calls. Everyone in the room exchanged glances. Big mistake. Because while Darren was out here playing executive cosplay and making backhanded comments about quotas, the real bosses were moving pieces behind the curtain. MRA didn't care about culture, or DEI, or fit. They cared about one thing, risk. And thanks to Marcus Reed's perfect infiltration, Darren Claiborne had just become liability number 1. Nadine hit send. Every document, every memo, every breadcrumb packed into a locked digital file with 2 passwords and a nuke switch. The recipients? A whistleblower desk, 3 regulatory watchdogs, and 1 investigative journalist named Reagan Cole, who'd been waiting 6 months for a lead like this. Across the city, Marcus sat on a rooftop bar, sipping ginger ale like it was Victory champagne. His phone buzzed once. Drops in motion. MRA will know by noon. He smiled. Not smug, not petty, just ready. Back at Vantage, Darren was still barking into phones, screaming for dirt, for leverage, for something to undo the last hour. But the calls weren't being answered. And across the boardrooms, the emails weren't being replied to. Because something bigger than him had started turning. A paper trail that was never supposed to exist was now breathing, walking, testifying. And at the very top of it, MRA Holdings, initials Darren used to ignore, until they showed up at the bottom of a termination clause with his name on it. Lunch at Valens was Darren Claiborne's ritual. Same corner table, same pompous $48 spicy tuna roll, same arrogance, marinated in expensive soy sauce, and the scent of power. Outside, a protest had started to build. Dozens of voices, signs, chants echoing off the skyscrapers. Something about labor rights, corporate transparency. One sign even had his name on it in thick red Sharpie. Darren laughed, loudly. God, the theater of the oppressed, he said, waving a chopstick like a conductor mid-symphony. I should hand them resumes. The CFO across from him forced a chuckle. Might not want to lean too hard into that right now. Please, Darren snorted, sipping sake like he was born on a yacht. You think the board cares what a bunch of unpaid interns yell on a sidewalk? 10 blocks away, in a sleek room humming with under-the-table warfare, a press embargo lifted. And with it, a headline dropped like a guillotine. MRA Holdings completes full acquisition of Vantage Corporation. Effective immediately. Incoming transitional chairman, Marcus A. Reed. The article was sharp, surgical, and already flying across inboxes like a damn contagion. It named names. Claimed leadership shakeups were critical for brand integrity. Said the acquisition was accelerated due to rising concerns over executive behavior. And Darren, still laughing over raw fish. He didn't see the notification, not yet. But his assistant did. Back at Vantage, her screen blinked once, then twice. She reread the press release. Heart stuttered. She didn't breathe for 5 whole seconds. Then she hit print. At the same time, over in HR, a call dropped directly into voicemail. All department heads are to be notified of new leadership changes by 3 p.m. Internal memo en route. No advance comment. And on the 42nd floor, a PR exec passed out from sheer anxiety after realizing they'd scheduled a Twitter post with Darren's face on it 5 minutes after the acquisition went live. Marcus, he was watching it all unfold from a quiet office 2 blocks over. Blinds half drawn. the city skyline glowing like validation. He didn't smile, didn't fist pump. He just stared at the article for a long, still moment. Chairman, funny how a man can be escorted out of one boardroom and walk back in the front door owning it. He picked up the phone. Let Nadine know I'll be in the building by 4. No ceremony, no cameras. Back at Valence, Darren was working on dessert. Something flambéed, probably. Still mocking protest chants. Still tossing buzzwords around like confetti at a failing wedding. The CFO was pale now, eyes glued to his phone, fingers trembling slightly as he refreshed his newsfeed for the 3rd time. Then the waiter approached, a little breathless, clearly flustered. Mr. Claiborne? Darren turned, fork halfway to his mouth. You might want to check this. He handed over a copy of the Financial Ledger. Freshly printed headline front and center. Darren blinked. Once. Twice. And then he read it. Incoming Transitional Chairman, Marcus A. Reed. The color drained from his face so fast it looked like someone unplugged him. No, he muttered. No, this can't. The CFO didn't say a word. Outside, the crowd's chants had changed. They weren't yelling against Vantage anymore. They were cheering for someone. Marcus Reed. And Darren? He finally understood what it felt like to be on the outside of a glass wall, looking in. By the time Darren gets back to Vantage HQ, the protest has tripled in size. He doesn't see it, though. Not really. Not through the tinted windows of his town car. Not through the ego static still buzzing in his skull. All he hears is the voice in his head whispering, "This is temporary. PR stunt. They'll walk it back." The headline keeps flashing behind his eyes. Marcus A. Reed, Chairman. He almost laughs again. Tries to, but it catches in his throat. The moment he steps into the lobby, everything feels off. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just too quiet. Eyes don't meet his. Conversations trail off mid-sentence. It's like walking into a surprise party where the surprise is, you've been replaced. He hits the elevator button. The usual receptionist doesn't even greet him. By the time he reaches his floor, his assistant's already waiting, standing stiff in front of her desk, tablet clutched to her chest like a lifeline. "Sir," she says, voice barely above a whisper, "you have a meeting, boardroom, now." Darren scoffs, brushing past her. "They can wait." She doesn't move. "Sir?" she says again. Then she meets his eyes, and for the first time since she started this job, there's fear behind hers. "You can't." That's when he knows. This isn't a meeting. It's a reckoning. His stomach turns. Not fear. Not yet. Just that sick twist of control slipping. Of walking into a room where your name doesn't hold the weight it used to. He marches down the hall, shoes hitting the floor like a warning. The boardroom doors are closed. But he doesn't knock. He swings them open like he owns the hinges, and freezes. They're all there. The board. Legal. 2 people from MRA Holdings he doesn't recognize. But they recognize him. Their faces blank. Clinical. Like they've already read his eulogy and just need him to sign it. At the far end of the table, Nadine Laurent sits like a statue, carved from judgment. She doesn't speak. Doesn't need to. Because standing just to her right, reading through a sleek folder with surgical calm, Marcus, in the flesh. No suit jacket, no theatrics, just sleeves rolled up and presence thicker than the air in the room. Darren feels something cold wash through him. For the first time, the man across the table isn't an applicant. He's not a quota. He's not some name on a file Darren skimmed over. He's the one who wrote the new script. Marcus looks up slowly, doesn't smile. "Mr. Claiborne," he says, his voice calm, even, and devastating. "Please, have a seat." Darren doesn't move. The board chair clears his throat. "Darren, we need to discuss your transition package." "Transition?" Darren chokes on the word. "You've been relieved of your position as CEO," Nadine says, finally speaking. "Effective immediately, per the accelerated clause in the new acquisition agreement." "You can't do this," Darren snaps, voice rising, throat tight. "We already did," Marcus says, flat, final. Darren's fists ball at his sides. "You think you can just walk in here and—" "I didn't walk in," Marcus says, stepping forward now. "I was invited, just not by you." The silence that follows is crushing. Darren's world shrinks, fast. This isn't an ambush. It's a handover. And he's the last one to get the memo. Darren doesn't knock. Of course he doesn't. He storms into the boardroom like he's still top of the food chain. Like his name's still etched in gold on the door, instead of being prepped for removal by facilities. His tie is crooked, his forehead beaded with sweat, and his pride barely holding on. But the second those doors swing open, The sound of his heels slapping the floor cuts through the room like a shot. And just like that, the laughter dies. 12 board members fall into sudden silence, heads turning in eerie unison. 2 attorneys, external counsel, not his usual yes-men, glance at Darren like he's a ghost interrupting his own funeral. And at the head of the long, polished mahogany table, Marcus A. Reed, seated, calm, power tucked into every breath like it was tailored to fit him. A single hand resting on the same folder Darren used to weaponize against people like him. His other hand holding a pen, not signing anything yet, just waiting. Darren stops mid-stride. His mouth opens. Nothing comes out. He feels it instantly. The shift, the weight. This is no longer his room. No corner office aura. No big dog bark. Just 12 pairs of eyes that used to obey him. Now looking through him like a liability on the wrong side of a ledger. Marcus leans back slightly in the chair, his chair now. "Darren," he says, not loud, not mocking, just firm, like gravity. "Glad you could make it." Darren swallows. What the hell is this?" Nadine Laurent speaks next. Crisp, legal, lethal. "This is the official transition meeting per Section 9B of the MRA Acquisition Agreement, signed 2 weeks ago, subject to board ratification, which concluded unanimously this morning." "You can't be serious," Darren says, voice cracking at the edge. "I built this company." "No," Marcus replies, tapping the folder once. "You inherited it. Then you hollowed it out and sold the bones to people who finally found someone better to sit at the top." A beat. Darren's face turns a shade of red that says this is slipping faster than he can fake it. "You think I'm gonna let you sit there and—" "Sit here," Marcus repeats, brows raised. "Darren, I am here, and you're standing there yelling like that's gonna stop anything." The silence is brutal. Nobody speaks. No one even pretends to look busy. This isn't a meeting anymore, it's a reckoning in slow motion. One of the attorneys pushes a folder toward Darren's empty chair. "Your severance paperwork, standard terms. You're free to review, though I'd suggest not making this harder than it has to be." Darren looks at the folder like it's radioactive. "Marcus," he says, but the name doesn't land like he wants. It stumbles out, awkward and weak. Marcus stands now, doesn't raise his voice, doesn't need to. "Darren, this isn't about revenge, it's about accountability. You forgot what it meant to earn a seat like this. I didn't." He walks to the window behind the table, the same view Darren once used to feel tall. "This company forgot how to look forward," Marcus continues. "I'm here to fix that." Darren looks around the table, searching for a lifeline, a nod, a shrug, anything. But no one moves. They're already in the new world. He's the one stuck in the old. Darren opens his mouth again. Still nothing. Marcus stands slowly. No dramatic music, no finger pointing, no vengeance monologue. Just a man rooted in something deeper than pride. Truth. He adjusts his sleeves with practiced calm and looks at Darren the way you look at a man who just realized the rope he tied is now around his own ankles. The boardroom is silent, but it's not empty. It's charged, like the air before a storm. Marcus speaks. "Mr. Claiborne," he begins, voice smooth as water over glass. "You interviewed me this morning for a job that never existed." Darren shifts, jaw tight, face stiff. "You asked me why I wanted to be here. Why I thought I fit your culture," Marcus continues. "But you weren't looking for a fit. You were looking for someone to fail." A pause, just long enough to sting. "You thought I was just another applicant. You thought this was your house." Marcus steps away from the table now, not pacing, moving with purpose. Every board member tracks him like a sermon they didn't know they needed. "You saw my name, my face, and in 7 minutes you decided I didn't belong. You didn't ask about my credentials. You didn't care about my experience. You cracked a joke about quotas on the way out." Darren opens his mouth, but Marcus raises a hand. "I don't need you to speak. I just need you to listen, for once." The attorneys sit still. The board stays frozen. Nadine doesn't even blink. "This company has been bleeding talent for years. You called it turnover. I call it toxicity. The best ideas got buried. The most capable people got overlooked. And the only culture that existed here was fear, favoritism, and fake innovation dressed up as disruption." Another step, another truth. "You thought this building was a fortress, but you built it on arrogance. You thought people like me were outsiders looking in. You never realized we were the ones knocking and taking names." Marcus stops at the head of the table, right where Darren used to sit. "But here's the part you really won't like, Darren. This isn't just about you. You're not a villain. You're just a symptom. a byproduct of a system that rewards exclusion and punishes authenticity. Darren's knuckles are white, his lips pressed so thin they disappear. "I didn't come to take your job," Marcus says. "I came to replace a mindset. One that says the boardroom is a gated community. That leadership has to look a certain way, talk a certain way, be born into a certain way." He lets that linger, long enough for it to get heavy. Today, he says, that mindset ends. No mic drop, no applause, just silence, the kind that lands hard. Marcus turns back toward the table and says, almost gently, "Let's begin." And with that, he sits. The room exhales, barely, quietly, like everyone knew they'd witnessed something that wasn't just a speech, it was a shift. Darren doesn't move. Can't. Because for the first time in his life, he's not the storm in the room. He's the debris left in its path. The projector flickers on. The screen glows white for half a second before filling with black and white text. Dates, case numbers, scanned signatures. Marcus doesn't speak yet. He just flips the first folder open like it's nothing more than paperwork. But the silence in the room, it's tight, pulled thin. Like someone holding a breath they don't even realize they're holding. "Let the record show," Marcus says calmly, "that this is not a presentation. This is an exposure." He picks up a single page, stamped, notarized, real. This is a formal discrimination complaint, filed by a senior developer in 2018. Her manager used to refer to her as the diversity unicorn. She was terminated 3 weeks after filing this. Click. Slide 2 appears, an internal HR memo marked confidential. The reason for dismissal listed as cultural misalignment, Marcus says. No follow-up, no investigation. A $40,000 NDA signed under duress. Click. Another page, another name. This one's a black engineer. Top 10% performer. His manager told him he was too urban to present to clients. That manager? Promoted twice. The engineer? Burned out and gone. Quietly paid $22,000 and a severance package that legally gagged him. Darren starts to shift in his seat, sweat breaking across his forehead. He knows what's coming. But the worst part? He doesn't know how much. Click. A table appears. 5 years, 27 internal complaints. Only 3 of these ever made it past intake, Marcus says. You didn't just run a company, Mr. Claiborne. You ran a machine. He looks up now, eyes locked on Darren. A machine designed to filter out people like me, quietly, systematically, legally. He sets the next folder down with a soft thud. Until today, the room stays frozen. Even the attorneys have stopped taking notes. There's nothing left to analyze, just facts, stacked on a table like dominoes that finally got pushed. Marcus continues. You wrapped your bias in performance metrics. You gave your prejudice a dress code. You held the door open just wide enough to say you tried, then slammed it shut behind anyone who didn't mimic you. He pulls up one last document. A spreadsheet. Anonymous feedback from exit interviews, color-coded by department. 68% of employees of color reported feeling unsupported or unwelcome. More than half used the word tolerated when asked how they felt at work. He turns to the board. Tolerated, not valued, not respected, just tolerated. That word lands hard because it's familiar, and they know it. Marcus lowers his voice. It's not soft, it's sharpened. Today that stops, not just because I say so, but because you can't look at these and pretend you didn't know anymore. He gestures to the pile of folders, real, documented, sourced. These aren't stories, they're receipts. And then he looks at Darren again, really looks at him. You thought the system protected you, that as long as it was quiet, legal, and buried deep enough, it would hold. He steps closer. You forgot that silence only lasts until someone learns how to speak louder. Marcus closes the final folder, folds his hands, and just like that, it's done. The room isn't just quiet anymore. It's aware. Because now the truth's on record. And nothing about Vantage will ever be the same. It happens fast, but not loud. Not with shouting or slammed doors or courtroom drama. No, this kind of collapse is quieter, slower. Like watching glass crack from the inside. One line, then another. Until everything just gives. Darren's smirk vanishes. That smug little curve he's been holding onto like armor, gone. And now, for the first time in his career, Darren Claiborne isn't performing. He's just there, bare, blinking, and finally realizing there's no one left in the room who thinks he's untouchable. He looks at the board. Not to speak, not to fight, Just a search for backup, for loyalty, for anything. What he finds: silence, cold, wide, final. On the far end of the table, a board member named Shaw, gray-haired, always neutral, shifts uncomfortably in his seat, clears his throat, and mutters just loud enough for the guilt to carry. "We tried to tell you." Darren flinches, like the words hit something tender. Because they did. Next to Shaw, another director, Patel, doesn't even look up. He's tapping a single sheet of paper against the table. Over and over and over. It's a resignation letter, already signed, already dated, folded once clean. Marcus doesn't say a word. He doesn't need to. His power isn't in volume, it's in presence. He just watches Darren like he's watching a sun finally realize its setting. Darren opens his mouth, something about legacy maybe, about how much he's built, the lives he's touched, the growth he's spearheaded, but nothing comes out. Because what do you say when the people who cheered you on now look at you like a stain they can't scrub off fast enough? Even his assistant, watching from the glass door, lowers her gaze. She knows. Everyone knows. For a moment, Darren considers rage, the kind that saved him before. He pictures flipping the table, spitting venom, dragging Marcus down with him in a blaze of old money fire. But something stops him, something in the air. It's not fear, it's irrelevance. Because this moment, it's no longer his. It never was. He's not being forced out. He's being erased. A memory that people in the room have already started editing out of their stories. Marcus finally breaks the silence. He doesn't raise his voice. He just says, "Security will escort Mr. Claiborne to retrieve his things." A press statement has already been drafted. It will read, "After a successful tenure, Mr. Claiborne has decided to explore new ventures." The way Darren's face twitches at that, you'd think Marcus slapped him. That line, that bullshit line, he's used to bury so many exits before. It's his now, weaponized against him. A poetic little knife wrapped in corporate velvet. He starts to speak again, but this time a board member cuts him off. "You should go," she says flatly, "while you still have a seat to walk out of." And that's it. That's the moment it breaks. Not a scream, not a scandal. Just a man realizing he's been written out of the history he thought he authored. Darren turns, slow, stiff, and walks toward the door. Marcus doesn't watch him leave. He turns back to the table instead, where real work waits, where truth is finally taking root. No fireworks, no applause, no press at the door. Just the scent of money, sweat, and endings. The boardroom's quiet now, not tense, just settled, like a courtroom after the verdict, like the moment between the lightning and the thunder. Marcus doesn't gloat. He doesn't lean back in the chair like a king or flash a smile like a man who just cashed in on revenge. He just reaches into his bag, pulls out a plain white envelope, and slides it across the table. "Right to Darren. Effective immediately," Marcus says, voice low and clean. "You're relieved of your position." Darren doesn't touch the envelope. He just stares at it. Like, maybe it'll disappear if he blinks hard enough. Marcus lets that hang for a second. Then he adds, with just a flick of irony, "You will, of course, be compensated according to the severance clause you approved last year." Another beat. Then the dagger, which, if you remember, was written by my legal team. Somewhere down the table, someone coughs to cover a laugh. A few others just shift, pretending they're too focused on documents to feel the second-hand sting. Darren finally picks up the envelope. He doesn't open it. He knows what's in there. Numbers, terms, a breakdown of what happens when your own ego signs your exit papers. "I built this company," he says one last time. Weak, shaky, not angry anymore, just small. Marcus nods once. "And now I'm rebuilding it." He gestures toward the legal team seated on the side. "You'll be escorted out by security, just like we outlined in protocol. Your office will be cleared by end of business. Any attempts to access internal systems past 3 p.m. today will trigger legal review." "Jesus Christ," Darren mutters. "You've really thought this through." Marcus lifts an eyebrow. "It's called preparation. You should try it sometime." Darren stands, pushing the chair back too hard. Nobody flinches. He looks around the room again. One last sweep. Like he's trying to find someone, anyone, who still sees him as something more than a headline waiting to drop. But there's no one. He adjusts his tie, picks up the envelope, and without another word, walks out. The click of the door behind him sounds less like a goodbye and more like a seal. It's over. Marcus doesn't watch him go. He turns to Nadine instead. "Notify communications. The internal memo goes live in 10. External release hits the wire at noon. She nods, already typing. She's been ready since page 1. To the board, Marcus says simply, "We're restructuring, not just leadership, culture, hiring, outreach, innovation, everything." Some heads nod. Others look exhausted. No one argues. Marcus continues, "I'm not here to be the next version of him. I'm not here to be palatable. I'm here to make this place real, for the people who've been locked out of rooms like this their whole lives." And then he finishes it clean. "If that makes anyone uncomfortable, the door's still open." Nobody moves, because discomfort's cheaper than being on the wrong side of history. The meeting ends with handshakes and silence, but this silence, it's not fear, it's respect. And outside, for the first time since Vantage was founded, the storm isn't coming. It's already here. And its name is Marcus A. Reed. The elevator dings. It opens with the same mechanical politeness it always had. But this time, there's no greeting. No Mr. Claiborne. No receptionist smile trying to score points. Just the dull hum of corporate air conditioning and the whisper of people pretending not to notice him. Darren steps inside alone. Same elevator. But now, it feels like a coffin on cables. His reflection stares back at him in the polished glass wall. Creased forehead, red eyes, jaw clenched too tight to fake confidence anymore. He presses L with a shaky thumb. Lobby. He'd used this ride 1,000 times. Morning ascents, afternoon descents, post-lunch power glides, always calm, always above it all. Now, he's falling. The doors close slowly, almost cruelly, sealing him in with the silence. Floor 42. Ding! Floor 36. Ding! Somewhere above him, cameras flash. Applause. Muffled voices. Cheers. Marcus's voice, clear and composed, is piped into the company's live stream. Today is not just a shift in leadership. It's a shift in philosophy. Vantage is no longer a gatekeeping institution. It's a launching pad, and starting now, we're opening every door that used to be slammed shut. The elevator keeps sinking. Floor 28. Ding! Darren clenches his jaw harder. He tries to tune it out, but the voice, the cheers, they echo in his chest like shame that got too big to swallow. He pulls out his phone. Habit, reflex, survival. No new messages. Just unread news alerts. Breaking. Claiborne out. Reed named first black CEO in Vantage history. Ex-Vantage employees speak out. Finally, someone who listens. A culture shift years in the making. He scrolls faster, hands slick. Then he sees it. The photo. Marcus at the press podium, calm as a preacher. Backlit by the skyline Darren used to think belonged to him, behind him. Diverse employees, smiling, real. He doesn't look like the diversity hire. He looks like the future. Ding. Floor 12. Lobby's coming. Darren wipes his forehead with the back of his hand, like it'll erase the fact that no one's calling. No one's spinning the PR, no one's rescuing him, because no one has to anymore. He's not a liability. He's just gone. The elevator opens with a soft hiss. He steps out into the glass lobby, same marble floor, same security desk, but the energy, different. No heads turn, no smiles. The intern at reception doesn't even glance up. She's scrolling. So is the assistant by the coffee bar. So is the guy in IT with the always broken AirPods. And what they're all reading? Him. Or more accurately, the version of him they never knew. A headline flickers on a nearby screen. No sound, just bold letters. Power shifts at Vantage. Old guard exits. New leadership promises transparency. He walks toward the revolving doors. Shoes loud against the tile, but nobody lifts their eyes. He's invisible in the house he once ruled. Outside, the press buzz is louder. The echo of Marcus's voice dances between the buildings. Darren pushes through the doors, squinting against the sun. And just like that, he's out. No car waiting. No assistant pacing the curb. Just the distant sound of a company healing itself without him. And the quiet realization settling in his bones. This elevator didn't take him down. He built it that way. It starts with a headline, then a phone call, then another. And suddenly, the machine that once ran in silence, greased by fear, secrecy, and corporate spin, is stuttering. Because the system that protected Darren Claiborne is now a crime scene. The whistleblowers are the first wave. One by one they speak. A former marketing director who was passed over 5 times, despite outperforming every peer. An intern who was told to straighten her name on her resume if she wanted to move up. A finance lead who was quietly blacklisted after reporting her manager's harassment. They start with anonymous statements. Then they go on record. Because now, someone's finally listening. And his name is Marcus A. Reed. He makes it clear from day one. If you were silenced, we'll make space for your voice. If you were wronged, we'll reopen the door. And just like that, the backlog of ignored HR files starts getting pulled out of digital shadows. Lawyers from firms that used to defend Vantage, suddenly flipping sides. Because the settlements that once came with strict NDAs, some of them were signed under conditions that now look real sketchy to compliance teams. By Friday, 7 lawsuits are reopened, 2 discrimination cases, 3 wrongful terminations, and 1 big one, a class action from ex-employees of color, alleging that Vantage not only tolerated bias but institutionalized it. Marcus doesn't flinch. He clears internal resources for transparency, tells legal, don't stall, don't protect, fix it. Then comes the SEC. They don't knock, they arrive. A formal inquiry opens into Vantage's hiring practices, severance deals, and reporting discrepancies, especially during Claiborne's tenure. The feds want to know how compensation was handled, who approved gag orders, why whistleblower protections were quietly ignored. And it doesn't stop at Darren. The spotlight turns slowly, deliberately toward the board, toward the former HR chief who signed off on $250,000 in hush money for 3 complaints filed within a single fiscal year, toward the outside consulting firm that ran inclusivity workshops while helping restructure departments to push out non-white leadership. Emails get subpoenaed, private servers get audited. The paper trail Marcus surfaced, it becomes evidence. But this isn't just about the company anymore. This is about a culture, a blueprint that too many other firms quietly mirrored. Suddenly, diversity audits become the trend, not for clout, but for survival. And the message is loud and clear. Covering bias with spreadsheets and buzzwords doesn't work anymore. Because when Marcus sat in that chair and said, "We're done with the old rules," it wasn't just Vantage that hurt him. It was everyone watching. From the lobby intern who used to smile through microaggressions, to the former VP who got forced out after calling out racist leadership, to the industry leaders now scrambling to update policies they already knew were broken. Marcus didn't just pull the curtain back, he ripped it down. Now the whole stage is exposed. And those who once hid in its shadows are finally being dragged into the light. Marcus doesn't sit behind his desk on day one. Hell, he doesn't even go to the desk. He walks past it like it's decoration, because power to him isn't in the furniture, it's in the people. So he hits the floors, one by one, every department, every hallway, every forgotten corner where interns used to cram at folding tables, where junior analysts stayed late just to be noticed, where security guards had worked for 12 years without ever getting eye contact from an exec. And now, the CEO's asking them questions. Hey, what would have made your job easier last quarter? What's one thing we do that wastes your time? What hasn't been said out loud here that should have been? People blink at first, unsure, suspicious, but then they answer, and Marcus listens. Not with polite nods or empty words, with a notebook, with follow-ups, with, "Give me 3 days and I'll circle back." And he does. 3 days later, things start changing. The busted payroll system and marketing? Fixed. The maternity policy that HR claimed was competitive? Overhauled. And the intern program Darren cut 3 years ago to streamline costs? Brought back, bigger, paid, and permanent. The new flyer reads, "We don't care where you come from, we care where you're going." Marcus makes sure it hits every college bulletin board in the 5 boroughs. Meanwhile, upstairs, the glass walls are still up, but now they're transparent in both directions. Leadership meetings get streamed internally. Anonymous feedback lines go live. And when one senior manager cracks a tone-deaf joke in a culture sync, thinking the new boss might be too busy to notice, he's in Marcus's office by noon, not to be yelled at, to be educated, to be told face-to-face this isn't about looking good, it's about being better. And word spreads. This CEO doesn't whisper. So when a journalist from the Times finally catches Marcus in the lobby, press badge half hidden, recorder already on, they hit him with the obvious headline bait. So how does it feel to be the first black CEO at Vantage? Marcus doesn't pause, doesn't flinch. He just looks at them, calm, firm, full of weight. "I'm not the first who could have," he says. "Just the first who was allowed to." That line goes viral by nightfall. Not because it's flashy, but because it's true. Every newsroom, LinkedIn post, think piece, and panel quote it like scripture. And for once, people aren't just inspired, they're challenged. Because Marcus isn't here to be a symbol. He's here to be a disruptor. To remind every boardroom that brilliance doesn't wear one face, that leadership isn't a country club. And that opportunity, real opportunity, starts when someone kicks the damn door open and holds it wide for the next person. By week's end, 3 other companies reach out, asking for help rebuilding their talent pipelines. A university wants Marcus to speak, a nonprofit wants to collaborate. He says yes to all of it, but not before walking through the break room and sitting down with a janitor on lunch break. "What's something no one's asked you about this place?" Marcus says. The man blinks, smiles, and answers. Because that's the thing about Marcus. He doesn't whisper from the top. He walks the floor, and people, they're finally ready to follow.